My brother is a powerful psychic who is regarded as a hero by everyone. Among my classmates, there is a dazzling new star who has been crowned as a genius, but I am out of place with mediocre talent and strength. Fortunately, I have a cheat called the Dream Rescue System. By entering the fictional dream world created by the system and rescuing the target girl specified by the system, I can receive rewards to strengthen myself. Anyway, it's a dream. It's nothing to be bold in a dream, right? The Purple Electric Queen, who presides over a financial conglomerate and is feared and worshipped by countless people, is just a little girl abandoned by her father and lost all in the dream world. Don't be easily defeated by despair. Come, let me teach you the truth, brother, and take you personally to a mature world. The saint walking in the wilderness turned out to be just an empty doll yearning for someone to pity and reach out. The red flame Valkyrie, the blue spirit girl, these girls who were saved in the dream world of the system, although in the real world they are unattainable and unattainable to me. But in my dream, can't I act recklessly? Just after waking up from a dream and returning to the real world, ding-dong. Oh, why did my doorbell ring? Looking out from the cat's eye, Xia Ming suddenly sweated profusely and his soul burst out. Damn it! Everything that was agreed upon happened in the fictional dream world of the system, which is false. Why are these women all coming to my door one by one with firewood knives, pretending to shut me down in the basement? Keywords of the novel. Help, they came out of their dreams and caught me. No pop-ups, help, they came out of their dreams to catch me. Download the complete TXT collection, help. They came out of their dreams and caught me. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. My cheats have finally arrived. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. My cheats have finally arrived. The notorious spiritual criminal, Fire Digger, was arrested yesterday. In this arrest operation, Xia Zheng, the head of the 4th Division of the Special Management Bureau, led the way in facing evil and personally brought the Fire Digger to justice, once again achieving first-class success. Since joining the Special Administrative Bureau, Director Xia Zheng has participated in the pursuit of major spiritual criminals multiple times and has made significant contributions. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Mayor to award us, the hero of the second city, an honorary medal. When his brother Xia Zheng was receiving an award at the magnificent City Council Hall and receiving a heroic title, Xia Ming had just finished a spiritual test and got off the spiritual test device. Xia Ming, spiritual strength, first order, energy level, 8. Xia Ming, don't lose heart. There is still 1 month left until the entrance exam. The teacher believes that with your efforts, you will successfully break through to the second level and pass the entrance exam, and be admitted to the School of Spiritual Energy. The kind-hearted middle-aged teacher walked up and patted Xia Ming's shoulder, comforting her. Seeing such test results, the students from the spiritual energy class around also spoke out to comfort them. Xia Ming, don't lose heart, there's still 1 month left. Yes, I believe that as long as you are willing to work hard, you will definitely be admitted to the spiritual academy. Xia Ming smiled calmly at his classmates around him, indicating that he was not discouraged. He knew that the reason why his teachers and classmates comforted him was because he had a well-known good brother. He did not express disappointment with such a result because he knew that even a month later, he was still the lowest first-order psychic and could still be admitted to the spiritual academy through his brother's connections. That's right. Although Xia Ming's strength is not good, I have a good brother. Of course, that was before. Now, what fills his heart with confidence is not his good brother Xia Zheng, but just now, a cheat that he has been through for 18 years has finally appeared. Ding! Sensing the host's desire to become stronger and become a hero, the Dream Rescue System has been activated. Enter the Dream Trial, save the target object during the trial, and receive system rewards based on the final result of the trial. In the Dream Trial, the host will temporarily gain special abilities and spiritual blessings. Please experience and use this ability well, become a hero and save others. Xia Ming was somewhat surprised. The desire to become stronger has always been his wish. He has traveled through this dangerous world and experienced the aftermath of his parents being killed by the battles of spiritual beings. He is more eager than anyone to become stronger and gain the power to protect himself. Can you become a hero? He admitted that he was a bit envious of his older brother's hero-like admiration and gaze from the crowd. But that was just an immature idea from his youth and ignorance in the middle and second years of his life. He didn't want to become a hero, as the burden of becoming a hero was too heavy and he was easily kidnapped by morality. Now, he only wants to become stronger, the kind of strength he can do as he pleases. However, if he is a hero who saves others in a dream, he doesn't mind being a hero either. Just like how men, whether in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, all like girls who are 18 years old, every man has a dream of a hero in his heart and fantasies of going out with a sword, which seems somewhat childish and unrealistic in reality. But anyway, it's in his dream, which can make him stronger and satisfy his former fantasy of being a hero. In one sentence, is there such a good thing? The system is activated, and Xia Ming has no intention of staying in the classroom to waste time. He can't wait to go home and experience what the so-called dream trial is. Compared to regular classes, spiritual classes are much more relaxed and flexible. After testing their own spiritual strength, Xia Ming and his classmates who came to comfort him joked a few times and were about to take leave with the teacher to go home. Suddenly, an unsociable mockery came from the corner. Admitted to the spiritual academy. Xia Ming, with your poor talent, if it weren't for Xia Zheng's connections, would you also be worthy of admission? The originally lively atmosphere in the classroom suddenly cooled down. The speaker's name is Su Yuanhang, with a second-level spiritual power and an 11th-level energy level. His talent is slightly better than Xia Ming's. Most importantly, he also has a good father, who is a senior executive under the Mingxia Foundation. So, teacher, I'll go home first. Xia Ming ignored Su Yuanhang's mockery and after taking leave with the teacher, Shi Shiran left the classroom door. He understood that everyone has had such a childish time, wanting to be different, wanting to attract everyone's attention in a unique way, and become the focus of the whole audience. Ignoring such a person would be the biggest blow to him. Xia Ming. Xia Ming's disregard undoubtedly exacerbated Su Yuanhang's anger. Xia Ming's brother's reputation in this city is too prominent, which makes him, even if his talent is mediocre, always receive attention from everyone and become the focus of his classmates. This has always filled Su Yuanhang's heart with jealousy. You coward and coward, you dare not refute me. You just ran away with your tail in a gray place. Do you only dare to hide behind Xia Zheng's reputation, like a woman? Xia Ming walked back. Su Yuanhang. He smiled and admitted, yes, I have a good brother, just like you have a good father. Neither of us is more noble than the other, right? Su Yuanhang widened his eyes slightly, unable to believe that Xia Ming had just admitted it. What he couldn't accept more was that Xia Ming equated him with himself and confused him. A hint of anger appeared on his face. Xia Ming, you figured it out. I'm a second-order psychic, and my strength is higher than yours. I'm better than you. But my brother is above your father. Xia Ming interrupted Su Yuanhang's words and smiled, saying, although my brother belongs to the Special Management Bureau and is responsible for handling special affairs related to spiritual energy, he cannot manage ordinary people. But I remember. Your Ming's foundation mainly deals with spiritual energy drugs, right? Su Yuanhang, do you also not want my brother to visit your father's company every once in a while under the guise of checking if spiritual drugs are compliant, so that your father's work cannot continue? Su Yuanhang's expression suddenly became somewhat bewildered and dull. I'll talk to you about talent and strength, and you'll talk to me about identity and background. He has always relied on having a good father to ridicule others, but one day, he was actually threatened in the opposite direction. He failed to fight for his father. His strength is indeed above Xia Ming, but who made Xia Ming and his brother Xia Jing above his father. Su Yuanhang looked at Xia Ming with a smile, feeling both aggrieved and angry. He pouted and wanted to say something harsh, but then turned around hesitantly and sat down with a suppressed expression. For the first time, he secretly complained in his heart about his father's lack of morale. Seeing Su Yuanhang sitting down in frustration without speaking, Xia Ming smiled slightly, patted his shoulder, and left the classroom. He has never liked to use Xia Zheng's reputation to bully men and women, but if necessary, he never minded using his brother's name to show off his authority. Yes, you have a good father, but I also have a big brother. Go home. Xia Ming first closed his eyes and meditated according to his usual habits, projecting his consciousness into the spiritual space to absorb spiritual energy. Until his brain issued a warning and began to feel dizzy and painful, he stopped meditating. Each person's innate talent and the amount of time their conscious body can spend in the spiritual realm each day are different. His talent is mediocre, and every day of wholehearted meditation brings only a slight improvement in strength. In fact, this is also a daily portrayal of most spiritual beings. Although this world has extraordinary power, spiritual beings are still rare. And among these rare spiritual beings, the vast majority, like Xia Ming, almost exhausted their soul's potential at the moment of awakening spiritual energy, and their strength froze, making it almost impossible to make a significant improvement. Xia Ming thought that as a traveler, he might have a high spiritual talent, but unexpectedly, he was mediocre. But it's okay, fortunately we have a cheat. Xia Ming found a comfortable position to sit on the bed and clicked on the system interface. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Girl, you can't do it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Girl, you can't do it. The system interface is exceptionally concise, to the point where there is only one button. Start trial. Xia Ming clicked down. A prompt box pops up in front of me. Do you want to start the dream trial? Yes/no, Xia Ming ordered yes. A bar reading screen appears on the system interface. Scanning the world, reading history. Generating trial copies based on the environment. Loading. 10%. 20%. 80%. 99%. Xia Ming's eyes darkened and then brightened. Opening his eyes, he, who was originally comfortable nestled in the bed, was already in the wilderness. Looking up, one can see a towering black wall in the distance, which is the wall of the second city. A system prompt came from the ear. Ding. You have entered the trial instance. Dungeon mission. Save the abandoned girl Mingnanian in the wilderness. Rewards will be given based on the final settlement result of completing the task, with no penalty for failure. You have obtained a spiritual bonus. In this trial instance, your spiritual strength has been increased to level 5. In this trial instance, you have obtained a special ability. The Light of Justice, Light of Justice. Your spiritual power will be able to transform into a light that cuts off all sins, the Light of Justice. Interesting ability to transform spiritual energy into light combat. Xia Ming immediately prepared to experience it. In this extraordinary world, special abilities are only qualified to attempt a second awakening when the psychic reaches a third level of spiritual strength, and before that, the soul is not enough to sustain the consumption of awakening. Spirituality is like a substance and energy, or rather, it is more like some intangible force. In the hands of first-order and second-order psychics, after learning and mastering, spiritual energy is commonly used to bless oneself and unleash stronger strength and speed, or to condense it into invisible armor to strengthen defense and resist damage. Excellent individuals can even extend this invisible force to a distance, as if using a mental power to directly apply an invisible force to the enemy, or use this force to manipulate distant objects for sudden attacks. At the third level, the psychic is already able to control this power and exert a stronger psychic effect, causing themselves to hover and even attempting to excavate their own soul, so that the floating spiritual ocean in the spiritual realm can respond to the deep desires of the soul and awaken new abilities. For Xia Ming, who is still at the first level, although he is in the dungeon of the dream trial, he must first master the 5th level spiritual power and the ability of the light of justice that he obtained out of thin air. Xia Ming looked at a thick tree 20 meters away, which was lush with branches and leaves, and its trunk was probably 10 meters thick in diameter. No matter how much manpower thought about it, it was impossible to shake it at all. Xia Ming gazed at the big tree, his spiritual energy responding to his expectations, transforming into an invisible and huge palm that stretched forward, holding the tree in his hand like crushing an eggshell. There was no loud noise, no earth-shaking movement, just a gentle grip, and the big tree was crushed and broken from within. Xia Ming's mind twitched, and a lightsaber appeared in his hand. With a gentle downward stroke, the hard layer of soil was cut like tofu, creating an unknown depth of crack. Unfortunately, there is no steel around me, but even if it is steel, this lightsaber should be able to easily cut it off like blowing hair and hair, right? Not only that, the lightsaber not only appeared in Xia Ming's hand, but also suspended by his side, moving like a flying sword with his thoughts and shooting towards the distance. Wherever the gaze reached, the flying sword arrived in an instant, with a hint of taking a person's head from thousands of miles away. In addition to the lightsaber, spiritual energy can also be transformed into other light attribute weapons, such as knives, guns, swords, halberds, and even light cannons. Very good, very wonderful. Xia Ming joyfully experimented with his newly acquired abilities. As for the rescue target required by the mission, Ming Nanyan. Unlocking new skills in the game requires first experiencing and experimenting with them, understanding them, and then masquerading monsters. Once you're satisfied, you can start fighting bosses. Is it okay to save Ming Nanyan? Once I master this ability proficiently, I'll find some monsters to try it out. If I'm satisfied, won't it be too late to go and save it? Besides, Ming Nanyan Xia Ming has an impression of this name, and now the helmsman of the Ming Clan Foundation is also an extremely powerful psychic. It is said that she was originally the illegitimate daughter of the previous head of the Ming family. 20 years ago, due to certain reasons, she was abandoned in the wilderness by the head of the family. As a result, she not only did not perish in the mouth of the wild beast, but also awakened her extremely strong spiritual power. After returning to the second city, she experienced many mysterious struggles. The foreign army suddenly emerged and subdued the old head of the Ming family, seizing the position of the owner of the Ming family's foundation, and has remained steadfast until now. Thinking of the system scanning the world and reading history during loading, coupled with the description of the task objectives. Xia Ming speculates that the current instance should be a dream world generated by the system based on the history of this world 20 years ago. He is currently at a time when Ming Nanyan was abandoned 20 years ago. It is said that Ming Nanyan was born extremely beautifully, and after becoming the owner of a consortium in power, he became even more dignified and extremely noble. 20 years ago, she still looked like a girl, but I don't know what kind of appearance she was at that time, still retaining her youthful and innocent qualities. But Xia Ming is not in a hurry to save her, to see how beautiful this rumored woman really is. What about the most beautiful woman? Now, he needs to overcome the addiction of being a 5th-level spiritual power first. And since this dream instance was generated based on real history, it means that even without me to save it, Ming Nanyan can still awaken his spiritual power and turn danger into safety. Don't worry, don't worry. Anyway, if you fail without any punishment, you can just start over. Ming Nanyan, hold on for now. I'll find some wild beasts to test my hand when I'm older, and then I'll help you after getting over it. Xia Minggang was thinking this way when he heard a system prompt sound in his ear. Ding. The target object is dead. Task failed, your settlement review received. 0. Do you want to upload this as the final settlement? After uploading, this dream trial will be completely locked, unable to enter, and unable to receive any further rewards. Yes/no, Xia Ming immediately chose no and then shook his head in disappointment. Ming Nan Yen, brother, I really admire you. In the real world, you can turn danger into safety, fight back to the second city, and use your weak body to fight back and seize the position of the head of the family. Why can't you stand still in the dream world? Do you want to repeat the trial? Yes/temporarily exit. Xia Ming temporarily withdrew and took out his phone to check. At 4:45 p.m., the sun had not even set yet. He stayed in the dream world for about half an hour, while in the real world, compared to the time when he just entered the trial, it seems like only 1 or 2 minutes have passed. Is the time flow inconsistent because it's a dream? Good thing. Xia Ming opened the system, clicked on the dream trial again, and entered the dream world. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Light falling from the sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Light falling from the sky. Ming Nanyan was not favored since childhood. Because she is an illegitimate daughter. She is just a product of her father Mingyuanqing's one-night stand with a certain woman. She didn't even know who her mother was, because she was abandoned at the entrance of Mingshi Manor from birth, with only a handwritten note indicating her background. Although it was confirmed that it was from the Ming family's bloodline, it was brought into the Ming family's large house. But she was the bitter gourd that Ming Yuanqing swallowed while pinching his nose, the least favored child. Ming Yuanqing's attitude naturally influenced the rest of the Ming family. He certainly has his own wife and children, as well as lovers who have given birth to him. But these illegitimate children are different from her. They have a mother, and Ming Yuanqing also has some affection for their mother. And she comes from the bloodline of a lowly woman who no one knows. So, Ming Nanyan became a deliberately overlooked shadow in the sunshine of the Ming family. From childhood to adulthood, no one wanted to approach her, no one wanted to approach her. Her peers ignored her, the elders of the Ming family ignored her, and her father ignored her. Even if she musters the courage to blend in, all she receives is the opposite ridicule and ridicule. Not valued or needed. She was abandoned at the door of Ming's house. But after being picked up by the Ming family, she was still the one who was abandoned. But one day, Ming Yuanqing suddenly appeared in front of her alone, with a father-like warm and kind smile, asking her to do a little favor and drink a tube of purple liquid in a test tube. She drank it. That was extreme pain, as if every nerve and cell was being cut and torn, and 10,000 needles were repeatedly pricked in the mind. When she woke up weak and powerless, she heard her father's care and comfort for the first time in her life. The first time he encouraged and praised her, saying she did a great job. She was moved and shed tears. From that day on, everything changed. She is no longer the neglected shadow. When she once again mustered up the courage to timidly try to approach her peers in the Ming family, she received a response. She saw the other person smiling at her for the first time. She has friends and partners. No one secretly mocks her as a motherless bastard anymore. My father often cares about her physical condition and occasionally takes her to Ming's private hospital for examination. But every time she wakes up, she feels as if she has been pricked with a needle, and the pinholes in her hands indicate that her fragile body has once again been injected with an unknown drug. It hurts, but it's okay. As long as I can help my father, as long as I can get his attention. I will never be that abandoned child again. When Ming Nanyan thought his life had changed, little did he know that in the secret laboratory separated by a wall, Ming Yuanqing looked at the pale girl on the hospital bed through a one-way mirror while looking at the report in his hand with a gloomy expression, very dissatisfied with the experimental results. The changes in data are becoming increasingly weak, still can't we break through that barrier? Next experiment, double the concentration of purple blood for me. But master, with such a high concentration of spiritual potion, Miss Nanyan's body may not be able to withstand it. It's just an experimental consumable. If it's broken or lost, it's fine. Ming Yuanqing sneered coldly, his expression cold and cruel, devoid of any mercy, and turned his head to look coldly at the experimenters. "Do as I instructed." "Yes." The experimenters were sweating profusely and eagerly responding. The days are getting better and better. Ming Nan Yen feels that her life is becoming more and more colorful. Once upon a time, her world was only a lonely black, and her figure was the only hint of paleness in it. But now, she has friends, companions, and the love of her father. She is no longer alone, no longer an abandoned kitten. Even during a holiday, my father abandoned his lovers and took the initiative to accompany her and give her gifts. The friend she met at the Ming family also brought her gifts, wishing her happiness every day and wishing her continued happiness. At that time, she did not see a hint of gloom hidden at the corner of Ming Yuanqing's mouth, or a hint of mockery buried under his friend's smile. She was just moved and shed tears. "It's getting more and more painful. Every time my father takes me to the hospital for a check-up, the pain after waking up becomes increasingly intense. Like a blazing fire burning the heart, like a cold wind piercing the bone marrow." Ming Nan Yen didn't know why she fell asleep every time she checked, and every time she woke up, she would have a few extra pinholes in her hands. Perhaps she knows. She doesn't always fall asleep either. Occasionally, in a daze, one can see someone wearing a white coat piercing a cold purple liquid into her arm and injecting it into her body. That was a more intense purple color than the liquid his father had made him drink for the first time. Monster and unknown. "It's okay, as long as I can help my father." She endured the pain and comforted herself in her heart. "As long as it is not abandoned. It's okay." Still not enough. Even with so much purple blood injection, she still can't break through that barrier and awaken her spiritual power. In the laboratory, Ming Yuanqing paced back and forth anxiously, his expression becoming increasingly gloomy and irritable. Is the qualification of the soul truly unchangeable? Without that qualification to awaken spiritual power, one will never be able to awaken spiritual power. He suddenly stopped and punched the experimental platform, his eyes showing a hint of madness. "Inject me with 3 times the concentration, no, 4 times. The demonic purple potion slowly pushed into Ming Nan Yan's body on the hospital bed. After several years of continuous experimentation, a qualitative change finally occurred at this moment, and in the end, this purple blood potion became the strongest catalyst. A violent and sudden magical reaction was rapidly occurring in her body. The flat curve on the screen suddenly began to fluctuate violently, then suddenly climbed and turned into a crimson curve. The laboratory alarm suddenly sounded, and the staff changed color and shouted to Ming Yuanqing. "Master, the experiment is out of control. Ming Nanyan's consciousness is disappearing, her soul strength is rapidly weakening, and purple blood is spiritualizing her body. It is expected that in 3 hours, her body will collapse along with her soul." At this critical moment, Ming Yuanqing did not continue to become more irritable. Did it fail? He let out a deep breath, regained his composure, and said coldly, "Don't let the pollution generated by her spiritual collapse affect this laboratory, throw her body into the wilderness." "Exactly, I'm tired of playing this play too. It's so painful, so painful. This time, the pain is 100 times more severe than all the previous pains combined. Under such pain, the souls seem to begin to disappear, and consciousness is instantly shattered. Pain has made thinking seem like a luxury." She only felt the pain of wanting to shed tears. Unable to resist, unable to hold on, consciousness and soul seemed to have been shattered, leaving the body. In a daze, her soul penetrated the wall and saw a laboratory filled with precision instruments, separated from her ward. Her father was standing in the laboratory, coldly and ruthlessly saying that he wanted to throw her body into the wilderness, saying that he was tired of playing this play. Ming Nan Yan's body was wrapped in a layer of white cloth and sent out of Mingshi Manor. In a daze, she saw her friend appearing at the entrance of the estate with a mocking sneer on his lips. Someone was telling her that the mission assigned by the master had ended, and she no longer had to play the role of that bastard's playmate. She used emotions to restrain and strengthen her will, so that her soul would not be unable to sustain and collapse in repeated experiments. In a daze, her body had already been transported out of the second city and taken 100 miles away from the city wall. With a bang. Her body was rudely thrown into the bushes, and the guards of the Ming family quickly started the engine and drove away, afraid that the pollution from her spiritual collapse would affect them. The body no longer hurts, and the soul and consciousness seem to have returned to the body's shell, but they cannot move, as if the body no longer belongs to them. The sky was as clear as blue, the sunlight was shining brightly, but before her eyes, there was only pitch black. In fact, I have already vaguely noticed it, but I have an inexplicable premonition in my heart. But when this day arrives, I feel sad and want to cry. It was abandoned again. A rustling sound came from the nearby grass and trees, and a cheetah with fur all over its body and huge fangs appeared in front of Ming Nanyan. Soul-devouring leopard. Ming Nanyan recognized this creature and mutated from the overflow of spiritual substances in the spiritual realm. Even if its attacks and bites were resisted, they would directly harm the soul of its prey. Its mutated fangs, as long as they pierced the enemy's body, would directly suck up the soul of the prey and strengthen itself. Is this my ending, to die at the mouth of the wild beast? The end of my abandoned and unwanted life at this moment? Ming Nanyan felt that her body could move, but she didn't want to move. She just gave a miserable smile and looked at the pitch-black and lifeless sky, feeling that it was not bad to die in the mouth of the wild beast. Anyway, she is not needed by anyone, and her fate is to be abandoned by others. Seeing the soul-devouring leopard pacing in front of her, its fangs probing forward slightly, almost piercing her body. She even began to fantasize about how it would feel when her fangs pierced her body, how painful it would be when her soul was devoured, how strong this wild beast would become after devouring its own soul, and how much killing it would continue to cause with the power of devouring itself. But at this moment, the desire to live was still looming, causing her to unconsciously imagine in her mind that maybe she wouldn't die, maybe there would be someone, a hero-like person, descending from the sky, turning into a light and cutting through the darkness, and coming to her side. Perhaps, haha. Even at this moment, am I still unable to resist fantasizing? It's really ridiculous. Where can there be any light? How could someone like me, who is not needed, come to save me? Impossible. No whoosh. At this moment, a dawn burst forth, like thunder and lightning, piercing through the darkness and piercing the body of the wild beast to the ground. Along with all the desperate fantasies of Ming Nanyan, they pierce through, along with the pitch-black world before her, they shatter into pieces. That is a gun. A gun formed by light. The gun body trembled slightly, and the tip of the gun plunged straight into the ground. Brilliant and dazzling, shining brightly. Is this light? The dark pupils of Ming Nanyan were illuminated by this light. Is this not a dying illusion? Light really appeared. She widened her eyes in confusion, looking at the shining gun in front of her. Suddenly, her eyes couldn't help but heat up, and tears flowed inexplicably. Am I worth saving? As soon as she looked up, she saw several lightsaber light guns surrounding her, calmly and gracefully floating in the sky, overlooking Xiaoming. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. What kind of reward does the gentleman want? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. What kind of reward does the gentleman want? Are you? Who are you? Ming Nanyan lifted her head and stared at Xiaoming floating above her head. The sky was dim, with countless gray dust floating in the air. The blood flowing from the corpse of the soul-devouring leopard was pungent and unpleasant, and the rugged branches grew like twisted monsters in the darkness. Only one person is emitting light in this dark world. Several light spears and swords circled around him, highlighting him as if he were an angel descending from heaven. He walked from the light and saved her. He is the only light that illuminates this world. Ming Nanyan's pupils widened in a daze. At this moment, Xia Ming's figure was permanently engraved in her mind. Immediately, she fell into a coma. Xia Ming frowned. What a restless woman. This time, as soon as I entered the dream world, I hurriedly searched for people everywhere. Fortunately, I caught up, otherwise this trial would have failed again. Ming Nan Yen, in the real world, you are full of wind and rain, with your hands and eyes open to the sky. Along the way, you have ruthlessly trampled on countless corpses and become the owner of the Mingxia Foundation. At this moment, why didn't you awaken your spiritual power according to the script and kill the wild beast, carrying the abandoned hatred all the way back to the Ming family? How could you just pull your hips in the dream trial? However, when I saw Ming Nanyan's face, which was still as beautiful and stunning as a clear water hibiscus even though it was stained with dust, her delicate skin that was frosty and snowy, her slender waist that was tightly grasped, her straight and slender legs wrapped in white socks, and her plump appearance far beyond that of her peers, his eyebrows relaxed. I understand now. Perhaps Ming Nan Yen in the real world has awakened her spiritual power and fought back all the way, but this is a dream trial, a virtual world space independently generated by the system based on the scanned history. If Ming Nan Yen really wakes up and fights back like real history, what else should I do? How else can I complete my task? Just Xia Ming held her chin and pondered on the scene she had seen when she hurriedly arrived earlier. The light in Ming Nan Yan's pupils dissipated. Faced with the behavior of the soul-devouring leopard about to take her life, she did not resist or struggle, and there was no hint of nostalgia on her face. Although it is unclear what exactly happened, if we say that Ming Nan Yen in the real world awakened her spiritual power and ignited a strong will due to being abandoned in the wilderness. So in the dream trial, she has undoubtedly been beaten to the point of giving up hope for life and doesn't care about dying. Although she had already been saved from the soul-devouring leopard, the system did not prompt for the task to be completed. Perhaps I still need to help her ignite her desire for life, and even give her some self-protection ability, in order to be considered as having completed the rescue. Xia Ming lowered his head again and looked at the pale face of the young girl, his gaze unconsciously falling on the large and soft breasts that far surpassed those of his peers. Alas, in order to complete the task and gain the strength to become stronger, I will reluctantly endure this good person to the end. Throw her body into the wilderness. As it happens, I'm already tired of playing this play. Oh, finally I'm dead. I don't have to continue being that little bastard's hypocritical good friend. In a daze, my father's cold face and my friend's teasing and sneering words kept flashing in my mind, like a cold tide rushing towards me, trying to push her into the sea and drown her at the bottom of the pitch-black abyss. The pain of suffocation, the pain of being abandoned, the pain of being deceived, just die like this. Anyway, I'm not needed by anyone. Anyway, I was born to be abandoned. Seawater rushes into the nasal cavity, filling the lungs, and both the body and soul seem to be slowly falling towards the pitch-black abyss. The Grim Reaper is embracing her, waving his sickle, trying to cut her solitary wandering shadow into tiny strands. But in such darkness, a beam of light suddenly appeared. Someone reached out to her, reaching out from the dark and suffocating depths of the sea, and grabbed her. Light comes from him, from his palm, from his face, warm and gentle, wrapping around her, saving her, telling her that she has not been abandoned. That's Ming Nan Yen suddenly sat up from the grass, and the night fell low, with pitch-black clouds covering the stars and moon. A bonfire was burning beside her, and there was a man sitting beside it. The man's profile was illuminated by the flames, and his bright eyes reflected the flickering flames of the bonfire, looking handsome and mysterious. She recognized this face because it was the owner who saved her. "You're awake." Xia Ming turned his face and looked at her calmly. Ming Nan Yen is very beautiful, especially at this moment when she experiences the attitude of being pitiful after abandoning everything, which did not disappoint Xia Ming, who had initially had expectations. My name is Ming Nanyan. Thank you for saving me. May I ask if you are? The voice of Ming Nanyan is even more melodious, gentle, like a gentle breeze of March rain gently stirring on the heart lake, unconsciously setting off ripples. Xia Ming, just an ordinary psychic. I happened to pass by and saw that you were in danger, so I saved you. Xia Ming waved his hand and said calmly. Xia Ming. Ming Nanyan remembered this name. She lightly pursed her lips and looked at Xia Ming's handsome face reflected in the flames, as well as the distinct lines on his face, silently lowering her head. She has been abandoned by her father and the Ming family. Although she was saved by Xia Ming, a spiritual expert, she doesn't know where to go in the future and where to go. Not being needed by others, born to be lonely, destined to be abandoned, even if I survive, what is the meaning of my life? She secretly looked up at Xia Ming again and suddenly had a thought in her heart. Mr. Xia Ming. He saved me. If I were to follow him in return for his life-saving kindness, I wonder if he would be willing to know. No, let's just forget it. Even though he saved me, I still want to use the excuse of repaying his life-saving kindness to follow him and trouble him, longing to be taken in by him. I am really despicable. Even now, I am still dreaming, fantasizing about the plot in fairy tales. The princess in distress meets the prince charming who saves her, which is really ridiculous. What kind of princess is a lowly person like me who even wished my own father could drive me out of the house? What qualifications do you have to follow him? And even if you muster the courage to speak up, you are likely to be rejected, right? I no longer want to bear the feeling of hope falling through. I no longer want to. Ming Nanyan. Xia Ming looked at Ming Nanyan's dimly lit pupils and knew at a glance that this woman must be overthinking and sentimental. Problem girls, it's always like this. He reached out and picked up the girl's smooth chin, forcing her to lift her head and look straight at his burning pupils. I saved you, just say, thank you, and then remain silent. What's the reward? To repay. Ming Nanyan was forced by Xia Ming to pick his chin with his fingers, not only feeling dissatisfied in his heart, but also feeling valued. She likes this feeling. But this is also because Mr. Xia Ming did not express his dissatisfaction with his life-saving kindness just now, which is why he took this action. Once I repay his kindness, he may also be like his father, abandoning me when I lose value. Mr. Xia Ming. What kind of reward do you want? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. It is so natural. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. It is so natural, don't call me sir, I'm not much older than you either. Xia Ming said lightly. You know in reality, but you are 10 or 20 years older than me, and I even have to call you auntie. As for the reward, I haven't figured it out yet. Is that so? Ming Nanyan lowered his head slightly. In Mr. Xia Ming's eyes, do I not even have the value of repaying kindness? Amidst worries about gains and losses, Xia Ming suddenly sat over and lay sideways, resting on her lap. I haven't figured out how to repay you yet, but I saved you and placed you near here to make a fire and keep you warm. But it has exhausted me. Now I can rely on your thighs to rest, okay? Xia Ming's head sank between Ming Nanyan's legs, moved slightly, found a comfortable position, and naturally said. Originally, the girl's thighs felt like this when they were pillowed. One-word description. Great. What kind of feeling does the evil feeling of the young girl that covers her gaze above her head feel like? Hey. Is it like this? A faint blush quickly rose on Ming Nanyan's face. From childhood to adulthood, apart from her father, no other man has ever been so close to her, let alone let his head rest on his thigh for such direct contact. But Mr. Xia Ming is also right. He saved me and took me to this quiet and safe forest to start a fire and keep me warm. He did so much. He is tired now and wants to rest on my lap. Of course, I should dedicate my thighs to Mr. Xia Ming as a pillow. Moreover, although this feeling was so shy and unfamiliar, it made the girl feel strange in her heart, but she did not find it annoying. She is so useless, and now she can help Mr. Xia Ming, even if it is only the insignificant use of her thighs as a pillow. But at least this proves that at this moment, she was needed by Mr. Xia Ming. Mo Roa said that besides the feeling of shyness and strangeness, Xia Ming's offensive words and actions actually gave Ming Nanyan a sense of needed peace of mind when worrying about gains and losses. She even began to worry about whether the effectiveness of her pillow would satisfy Mr. Xia Ming. Mr. Xia Ming, using my legs as a pillow. Is it still comfortable? Will it hurt you too much? She reached out to touch the boy's cheek and gently caress his messy hair, but in the end, she withdrew it and carefully observed his expression, asking. No, of course not. Also, they told you not to call me, sir. Upon hearing Xia Ming's correction, Ming Nanyan quickly lowered her head and apologized as if she had done something wrong. Yes. I'm sorry. She lowered her head and bent down, and two huge sins happened to cover Xia Ming's face. Now, Xia Ming knows what that feels like. Damn Ming Nanyan, he is trying to keep me by your side in such a vulgar way. Even if you don't do this, I won't leave to complete the task. Forget it, it's all for the sake of becoming stronger. It's okay to suffer a small loss, is it a blessing to suffer a loss? Xia Ming comforted herself in her heart like this. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to feel more. Ming Nanyan felt the touch on her chest and immediately panicked. She quickly stood up, blushing shyly and soaking her cheeks in sweat due to nervousness. Under the glow of the fire, she had a particularly pure and seductive beauty. Yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Xia Ming. I didn't mean to. Actually, you can deliberately do it a few more times. I don't mind at all. After all, you have taken advantage of the losses and the benefits. What's the difference between once and a few times? Xia Ming murmured in silence, too lazy to correct Ming Nanyan's address. Tell me, Ming Nanyan, how did you get into this wilderness alone? He asked. If you want to solve the girl's worries, reignite her hope, and gain the power of self-protection, then understanding her past is essential. Otherwise, even if she awakens her spiritual power and lacks willpower, she is just like a child holding a sword that is too large to match her body shape, and can only be slaughtered by others. Xia Ming's magnetic voice came from under Ming Nanyan's chest. I'm curious about the story that happened to you. My story. Ming Nanyan bit her lips lightly, remained silent for a while, and began to slowly narrate. Mr. Xia Ming, I am actually Ming Yuanqing's illegitimate daughter. On a pitch-black night, the quietly burning campfire illuminated this small world, and the clear and soft voice of the girl flowed quietly in the darkness. Occasionally, there was the sound of beeping firewood, and sparks flying out of the flames danced around the tree like fireflies. Ming Nanyan truthfully recounted her past from birth to present, perhaps because no one has ever been willing to listen to her so attentively in all these years. She spoke very seriously, but unconsciously felt uneasy inside. She was afraid that with such a background, she would become even more lowly in Mr. Xia Ming's eyes. She also feared that Mr. Xia Ming would abandon her because he didn't want to provoke the monstrous Ming. After hearing her story, he turned around and threw her away in this pitch-black night, in this dangerous wilderness. In the quiet night, apart from the sound of Ming Nanyan, a few clicking sounds suddenly rang out. That's not the beeping sound of firewood burning, but from the darkness around, from unknown enemies and dangers. Someone, or rather a monster from the wilderness, has been watching them. The voice of Ming Nanyan's speech paused, and she looked around in fear, feeling that the dark and deep tree shadows outside the flames seemed to be swaying like ghosts, and her body couldn't help but tremble. Xia. Mr. Xia Ming, have you heard me? Xia Ming calmly patted her trembling thighs, changed positions, slightly opened his eyes, and said. It's okay, you keep talking, don't be afraid. Well, this leg beats well. With such a gentle pat from Xia Ming, Ming Nanyan's anxious mood suddenly calmed down inexplicably. This man, or rather a teenager, although seemingly not much older than her, gave her a sense of reassurance and trust, making her unconsciously ignore his seemingly high school age and instead see him as an incredibly reliable reliance. Ming Nanyan continued to speak. And the enemy lurking in the darkness seemed to feel a provocation towards the two of them, who were so indifferent, and slowly paced up. 1, 2, 3 dozens of wild wolves appeared from the edge of the dark silhouette of the night, silently surrounding the two of them, slightly arched in their bodies, ready to pounce at any moment. A pair of green and eerie eyes stared at the two sitting by the campfire with malicious intent, like a group of ghostly fires lit by the grave in the dark of the night. Mr. Xia Ming, yes. It's a wolf. Ming Nanyan's voice was difficult to maintain stability and became trembling. She recognized these creatures, and since the overlap between the spiritual world and the real world 100 years ago, these wild creatures have been polluted and mutated by the spiritual substances and energies overflowing from the spiritual world, transforming into even more ferocious and terrifying monsters. The group of wild wolves in front of us, or rather wild beasts, are even more powerful and ferocious than the group of wolves before the world mutation occurred. Each one is not something that ordinary first and second order spiritual beings can deal with. Their sharp claws and teeth not only become sharper and more resilient, but they can also spit out toxic mist. In addition, they often gather together, which increases their level of danger. They can easily rush into an unprotected town and slaughter the entire town. Although Ming Nanyan did not live well in the Ming family, he has been living in the city since childhood. How could he really see such a fierce beast with his own eyes? Not to mention that it is now dark night. She is in a dangerous wilderness, with no stars or moon in the sky. The beasts pacing out of the darkness are like monsters in horror stories, ferocious and terrifying, as if they are endless and endless. How can they not make people feel scared? However, despite being such a terrifying wild beast monster, Xia Ming only stood up from Ming Nanyan's soft thighs, scanned the surrounding wolf pack, and let out a soft sigh. You didn't come at the right time. The blazing light instantly dissipated the darkness, and the guns and swords that Ming Nanyan had once seen appeared again in the air around him, one handle after another, appearing incredibly sacred due to their radiance, as if they were divine weapons that had emerged from mythological stories. Holy and dazzling, all evil and filth will be cleared and eliminated under this light. Each light gun and lightsaber accurately aimed at each fierce wolf that showed its claws to the two, targeting their terrifying heads. Pop. With a snap of Xia Ming's finger, the light gun and lightsaber shot out in unison as if hearing the command sound, falling down like rain. Only a rumbling sound could be heard, and the evil beasts who had just harbored ill intentions towards the two were pierced by guns and swords, along with the earth being penetrated into small pits. The terrifying green eyes, resembling ghostly flames, also showed a fearful expression in the face of death. However, before even a mournful cry could be heard, they were taken away by these powerful light guns and swords, resembling crossbows and arrows. Completely extinguished. The light dissipated. Night returns to silence. Only the corpse of a wild beast on the ground indicates what just happened. Ming Nanyan stared at the scene before her with wide eyes, and Xia Ming's mysterious and powerful power was once again transformed into an impression deeply engraved in her heart. Xia Ming put his head on Ming Nanyan's thigh, yawned, and then lay down comfortably. Just some small insects that don't have long eyes, there's nothing to be afraid of, Ming Nanyan, let's continue talking. He patted her thigh and urged. Ming Nanyan couldn't help but look down at him, although Xia Ming's expression was obscured by her chest. But Xia Ming's light-hearted actions still made her sigh in her heart. Mr. Xia Ming. Really amazing, so mysterious. More admiration for Xia Ming rises in my heart. At this time, Xia Ming did not have as much as Ming Nanyan had thought. He just felt that Ming Nanyan's thighs were soft, much more comfortable than lying on some grass. He only unconsciously recalled the fantasies that had popped up in his mind when the wild beast appeared just now. When the lovely and beautiful female protagonist encountered danger, he walked elegantly and mysteriously from the darkness, effortlessly eliminating the enemy in a handsome and elegant way. Then, he casually uttered pretentious words such as, "They were just insignificant insects, not even able to force me out of my strength." Finally, he turned around and disappeared into the deep night amidst the female protagonist's amazed and worshipful eyes. Then he couldn't resist doing so. In reality, he can't do such things or say such words, but after all, it's in his dream. It's okay to just satisfy himself a little bit, isn't it? Although it seems a bit different from the fantasy story in the end. At least at the end of the fantasy story, he didn't lie on the soft and smooth thighs of the beautiful girl like this, patting her thighs and urging her to continue telling those bitter past stories. But can there be such a fool in this world who can lie on the thigh of a beautiful girl without lying down, turn around and walk away? Besides, this is also to treat the mental illness of young girls. She was abandoned by her family and biological father, and now she is sensitive and fragile, insecure and self-pitying. Undoubtedly, she needs this feeling of being needed. I am just helping her. In the flowing night, the story of Ming Nanyan is nearing its end. Xia Ming finally gained a rough understanding of how unbearable and tragic the woman who overshadowed the sky in the second city had a past. What sets her apart from the dream trials is that in reality, she transforms grief into strength and emerges from it. But in her dream, she was almost crushed by it. However, just as she was about to finish this final part, Goo-goo. Ming Nanyan's stomach rang out of place. Are you hungry? Xia Ming asked. Ming Nanyan nodded awkwardly, her face slightly flushed. From being abandoned by her father in the wilderness to being saved by Mr. Xia Ming, she has not eaten for a day now. She was actually hungry a long time ago, just afraid that saying it would make Mr. Xia Ming feel like he didn't want anything in return. She shamelessly wanted Mr. Xia Ming to continue giving her some food, but there must be a limit to her shamelessness. Since Xia Ming asked her to tell a story, she has been enduring hunger without saying anything. Until now, her stomach finally can't bear it and has protested on her behalf. I happen to be hungry too, and I just had food delivered to my door. Xia Ming stood up from her arms and looked at the scattered corpses of wild beasts that had just been destroyed by him, now lying on the ground. Do you mind eating their meat? Xia Ming looked at her and asked. No. I don't mind. Ming Nanyan shook her head and said with a slightly red face, her impression of Xia Ming in her heart has improved a bit. Mr. Xia Ming is really a kind and gentle person. He not only didn't blame me, but also worried that I wouldn't dare to eat the food made from the carcasses of wild beasts. He asked me with special concern. This is still the first time that someone did not save me for any reason. They patiently listened to me and cared so much about me, even paying close attention to this trivial matter. Can Mr. Xia Ming? Can he? Her heart began to thump and jump. Seeing Xia Ming using his spiritual energy to condense a shining knife, as if he was about to take action on those wild animal corpses, Ming Nanyan felt even more grateful and moved in his heart. He sat in place, staring at Xia Ming's face, waiting for him to prepare the food. However, she sat still, and Xia Ming also sat still. Instead, she reached out and handed the small knife over. Mr. Xia Ming, what do you mean by you? Ming Nanyan widened her eyes in confusion and looked at him with some confusion. What do you mean? You're hungry and you don't mind eating their meat, so shouldn't you go cut off their meat to fill our stomachs? Xia Ming looked at her and naturally said. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Tearing off scars again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Tearing off scars again. Hey. Me. Ming Nanyan was stunned for a moment, staring blankly at the small knife handed over and pointing at herself. Otherwise. Xia Ming shrugged his shoulders. I saved you, and it's not enough to help you kill these dangerous wild beasts. Do you even need me to feed you with my own hands when you're hungry and want to eat? No, not really. Shame quickly surrounded her, and Ming Nanyan shamefully lowered her head and took the knife. Sorry, Mr. Xia Ming, I'll go right away. She quickly got up with a blush and walked towards the corpse of the wild beast outside the fire, afraid to look into Xia Ming's teasing eyes. Just now, these wild beasts were all annihilated by Xia Ming before they could get close. Even the nearest corpse is now more than 10 meters away. When Ming Nanyan walked up to the corpse, the warmth and light from the campfire behind him seemed to have blurred and distant to another world. The deep darkness before him seemed to make the corpse of the beast under his feet even more terrifying, with a pungent and unpleasant smell of blood filling his nose. She tightened the small knife in her hand and secretly glanced back. Xia Ming was lying on the grass, squinting her eyes comfortably. Not to mention the intention of helping, she didn't even glance at her. That's right, we shouldn't continue to trouble him. Ming Nanyan took a deep breath and looked at the faint light on the small knife in his palm, cheering himself on in his heart. And Mr. Xia Ming's stomach is also hungry, so I can't just rely on him and continue to hesitate here. To put it bluntly, I have no qualification or reason to ask Mr. Xia Ming to continue doing something for me. On the contrary, it should be me doing something to repay him. For example, cutting off the meat of these wild beasts and roasting them to fill Mr. Xia Ming's stomach. Although it was her first time doing it, Ming Nanyan still tried to suppress the nausea and discomfort that arose when she saw the blood and body, and clenched her small knife, trying to cut the meat from above. Xia Ming lay on the grass, occasionally glancing up at the progress of Ming Nanyan. Although the grass was not as soft as the girl's thighs and comfortable to pillow, it still made him feel a faint pleasure in his heart as he urged a girl to do things for him like a servant. Not to mention, this is a leading figure in the future in the second city, the queen of the Ming family, and a high branch that countless companies and small conglomerates dream of climbing. Even the mayor must show respect and even a hint of flattery in front of him. And now, this big shot is struggling clumsily to solve his hunger problem, trying to separate the fur and flesh from the wild beast. His fair little face, which usually does not have a trace of dust, is already covered in fine sweat, wetting the strands hanging in his ears. This taste, this enjoyment, let's not talk about it anymore. After finally cutting some meat with a knife, Ming Nanyan came to the campfire with the meat and tried to start a small bonfire. He found branches to stand up and build a simple grill, so that the meat could be baked on top. It was a flurry again, with repeated failures and attempts before barely succeeding. My eyes were sore from the smoke, and my little face was stained with several dusty black stains. She was already starving and had to endure hunger to complete this task, which was not easy for her. By the time everything was done, she was already weak and panting, so tired that she wanted to simply ignore the image of a lady and fall to the ground to rest. And Xia Ming remained unmoved as she watched her complete the entire process from start to finish, without any intention of being soft-hearted or helping. Ming Nanyan didn't even ask for his help. Or to put it another way, although the process is complicated and arduous, it is precisely this tedious and arduous labor that gives her a feeling of realizing her self-worth and being needed. I am not a burden, at least. There is something I can do to help Mr. Xia Ming. In no time, the meat was roasted. Ming Nanyan picked up a piece of barbecue stuck on a branch and walked to Xia Ming's side. I'm sorry, Mr. Xia Ming. I've been keeping you waiting for so long. I'm just too stupid. It took me so long to fix it. You must have been hungry long ago, right? Xia Ming took the grilled meat, but didn't rush to eat it. Instead, he suddenly mentioned. Just now, your story is almost finished, isn't it? Yes. Yes. So, as a dessert before dinner, why don't you finish the last paragraph of this story before we eat? Although Ming Nanyan was already worried about hunger, he did not refuse Xia Ming's request. She remained silent for a while before slowly speaking up to tell the final paragraph of the story, which was the ending of being abandoned by her father that happened to her today. The story is over. The night breeze blew the flames and the atmosphere fell silent. Ming Nanyan looked up at Xia Ming and then silently lowered her head. Why was she willing to say these things in front of Xia Ming, telling stories that meant sadness and pain to her? Is it because you want to be comforted by Mr. Xia Ming? Is it because you want him to sympathize with you so that you can continue to stay by his side? She doesn't know. She just sat restlessly in this silence, feeling uneasy and nervous, with a hint of inexplicable little expectation, anxiously waiting for Mr. Xia Ming's response. For a long time, Xia Ming spoke up. So, was it for this reason that you were abandoned in the wilderness? Being treated as an experimental object by your biological father, losing value and being casually discarded, and even ordering your subordinates to throw you into the wilderness for fear of your body's spiritual decay and contamination after death, even the most rudimentary funeral cannot be arranged for you, Xia Ming concluded. Ming Nanyan silently bit her lips, and the pain in her heart couldn't help but turn into tears overflowing in her eyes. And Xia Ming's voice continued. So, when you see that soul-devouring leopard walking towards you, it's about to end your life. He cruelly uncovered the girl's heart and once again tore open the scar in her heart. Are you letting it show its fangs to you without any resistance, because at that time you were already hopeless and thought it would be better to just die like this? Mr. Xia Ming, please. Don't say anything. Ming Nanyan sobbed softly, tears as big as beans, like broken pearls, falling on the grass one by one. He didn't comfort her. Originally, telling others about the tragic experience that had happened to her was like tearing open a scar in her heart. Xia Ming's words once again forced her to face and accept this unbearable fact, and to seize the opportunity to strike a blow in her heart. She no longer wants to recall everything that happened today, no longer wants to recall the pain of losing everything. Okay, I won't say it anymore. Eat meat. Xia Ming picked up the barbecue and changed the topic, stopping the girl's sobs. You should be trying to cook in the wilderness for the first time, right? I'm a bit curious about your cooking skills for the first time, and I don't know how the grilled meat tastes. How does it taste? Ming Nanyan is also cooking in the wild for the first time, and she is uncertain about the taste of the grilled meat, which makes her feel a bit uneasy. If it doesn't taste good, I wonder if you will be scolded by Mr. Xia Ming. If it's delicious, would he praise me? My expectations floated up inexplicably like bubbles rising from the bottom of the water. Seeing Xia Ming take a bite, Ming Nanyan quickly wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes and raised her head slightly to ask him in a low voice. Mr. Xia Ming, is it delicious? Her heart began to inexplicably look forward to receiving praise from Mr. Xia Ming. It tastes bad. Xia Ming answered calmly. End of this chapter. Chapter 7, Are You Probably Doubting Me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, Are You Probably Doubting Me? Tasty. Xia Ming gave a straightforward evaluation of the grilled meat personally made by Ming Nanyan. The small expectation in Ming Nanyan's eyes suddenly turned into a sad loss. Why, do you think I'm lying to you? Then you can eat and see for yourself. Ming Nanyan picked up the grilled meat stuck on a branch in his hand and tried to take a bite. Good job. Good firewood. It's really not delicious at all. Actually, it should have been anticipated long ago. This is her first time grilling meat. How could she possibly master the cooking like a skilled chef, barely able to eat it, which is already considered qualified for her? How could she still imagine that she could make a delicious dish on earth with her first attempt? Rather than saying that she was delusional about this, it is more accurate to say that she was actually eager to hear Xia Ming's voice praising and saying that even though she knew the grilled meat in her mouth was not tasty. However, Xia Ming did not make her wish come true. I'm sorry, Mr. Xia Ming, I made such an unpleasant thing. Ming Nanyan cried mournfully. Do you still want to die now? Hey! Ming Nanyan's expression froze for a moment. Ming Nanyan, the seemingly simple grilled meat, is not actually easy to make, is it? Yes. Yes. If you don't eat, you will die. Look, you just want to fill your stomach. You have ready-made food and firewood on hand, but even so, you still have to work hard to make a barbecue that's so unpleasant. Ming Nanyan lifted his head and looked into Xia Ming's eyes. Mr. Xia Ming, what you want to say is. I want to say that your story sounds tragic, and I sympathize with you. However, there are still many people in this world who have to put in their lives just to get enough food to fill their stomachs. Their living conditions are far inferior to those of us who are currently camping in the wilderness, eating even worse food. Even though they struggle, they still haven't given up hope and are working hard to survive. I'm not here to judge who your suffering is more tragic than theirs. I just ask you, do you still want to die now? Xia Ming stood up straight and stared at her with utmost seriousness. His eyes shone brightly in the fire, as if a ray of light suddenly pierced into Ming Nanyan's cold and silent heart, activating the small flame submerged in despair and darkness. I. Ming Nanyan remained silent and trembling, but his palm unconsciously clenched into the shape of a fist. Your father, does the Ming family treat you like this without any dissatisfaction or resentment? Xia Ming asked her again. Are you really willing to die silently in the mouth of the wild beast without any desire to retaliate? How could it not be? She yearns for the acceptance of the Ming family and the care and attention of her father. She worked hard to fulfill all her father's demands, enduring the pain of being injected with medication every time she checked her body. She thought she was getting better, but in the end, she realized that everything was false. How can we not hate it? Ming Nanyan clenched his fist. If we say earlier, she almost lost her will to live due to a major blow. So now, under Xia Ming's discourse therapy, she has reignited her desire for life because she has found a goal to live. Mr. Xia Ming, I want to. The girl looked down at her tightly clenched fist, which was so weak and powerless, but it did not hinder her from making up her mind. I want to retaliate against everything, I want to go back to the Ming family and reclaim everything. The girl turned around and looked towards the direction of the city. There was the second city, where the towering Ming family stood. The firelight only illuminated her back, and her face was shrouded in darkness, pitch black. Okay, I support you spiritually. Xia Ming patted Ming Nanyan's shoulder, turned her body back, and pointed to the barbecue beside her, saying. Whether to seek revenge or not is up to you, but at least you can't starve yourself to death before the revenge is successful. The meat will be cold. Ming Nanyan looked up and, for the first time, mustered the courage to look directly into Xia Ming's eyes. Mr. Xia Ming, thank you. I just don't want the person I saved to turn around and die again. It seems like my good intentions are in vain and I've done nothing. Xia Ming finished eating the grilled meat in 2 bites and patted his hands, saying. More importantly, I never do business at a loss. I haven't figured out what your reward is yet. How can you die if I have to take the reward from you? Ming Nanyan felt a warm sensation flowing through his heart, picked up the grilled meat and smiled lightly at Xia Ming, saying. Mr. Xia Ming, please rest assured that I will not actively seek death until I have completed your repayment. She knew Mr. Xia Ming's hard work. The reason why he had just asked her to cut meat, light a fire, and roast meat alone, and even used various words to strike her, was all to turn grief into motivation, to reignite her will to live well. This is a unique warmth that cannot be felt from the father. So sincere, delicate, moisturizing and silent. In fact, even if Mr. Xia Ming didn't say that last sentence and didn't arouse her resentment towards the Ming family and Ming Yuancheng, she wouldn't be desperate to seek death anymore. Because in addition to achieving her goal of revenge, she has found another goal that supports her survival. Ming Nanyan secretly looked up at Xia Ming resting by the big tree, and the warmth flowing in his heart grew stronger. She tried hard and quickly swallowed the unpleasant barbecue, then came to Xia Ming's side and whispered. Mr. Xia Ming, resting on the tree trunk shouldn't be a good rest, right? My thighs can continue to serve as pillows. Xia Ming opened his eyes and squinted at her, then sneered and pointed at her black and white face and dirty body. You're not clean. I don't want to sleep with unclean women. Ah, yes. I'm sorry. Ming Nanyan woke up in shock and realized how dirty she had just made herself in order to make a delicious meal. Xia Ming stood up and patted the dust off his body, pointing to the distance and saying. Let's go, there's a small stream not far away that's enough for you to clean your body. The front was pitch black, but with Xia Ming by his side, Ming Nanyan didn't feel afraid at all. Just, Mr. Xia Ming, just. If it's just to clean the body, there's no need to use spiritual energy to illuminate this place, right? By the creek, Ming Nanyan shyly covered his chest, hesitating and not going into the water. Beside her, Xia Ming was opening his eyes wide, transforming his spiritual energy into a light bulb that illuminated the area in front of him. I'm not here for your convenience. If I don't light up, how do you know where you're dirty and where you're not, he said seriously, looking at Ming Nanyan. Looking at Xia Ming's stern and serious expression, Ming Nanyan's heart was shaken. Perhaps. Is that what Mr. Xia Ming really thinks? If you're afraid of someone peeping, don't worry, this is a wilderness and there are no people here, and I'll also set up an additional layer of spiritual barrier just in case. Or rather. Xia Ming looked at her with some injuries. Do you suspect that I will peep? My spiritual ability is called the light of justice, and all my actions are just. How can you doubt me? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. No failure in the experiment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. No failure in the experiment. Seeing Xia Ming's injured expression, Ming Nanyan felt a hint of guilt in her heart, as if she had really done something wrong. I didn't think that way. She shyly bit her lips, her beautiful face blushing like the lips being bitten. Mr. Xia Ming, if you want to see it. Just show it to you. She shyly turned around and placed her fingers at the corner of her clothes, hesitating and feeling inexplicably excited. Mr. Xia Ming wants to see my body. Does it prove that he treats me even if it's just because of my insignificant and weak body, as long as it can repay Mr. Xia Ming's kindness, and even if Mr. Xia Ming becomes obsessed with my body, it would be even better. Because of this, he can always be by my side really, they have already thought about making promises with their own lives. Mr. Xia Ming, you can speak frankly. Why bother teasing others like this? Ming Nanyan made up her mind and gently lifted the corner of her clothes with her orchid-like fingers, deciding to seize this opportunity. After being abandoned by her biological father and experiencing heartbreak and despair, Xia Ming, who saved her and ignited her hope for survival, has become the most important person in her heart. In this short period of time, the affection that arose from being moved and grateful quickly transformed into a strong dependence and attachment, filling her empty heart after losing everything. Although it was unimaginable and difficult for her to speak of doing such a thing in the past, whether it's the nervous expectation of breaking through moral taboos by being naked in front of others, or wanting to repay Xia Ming's kindness and win his favor. Ming Nanyan's delicate body was trembling, her face was hot and red, and she was extremely shy. Fortunately, she turned her back to Xia Ming, causing her brain to burn completely beyond just seeing his figure. She lifted the hem of her clothes, suppressed her shyness, turned her back to Xia Ming and began to take off her clothes. The dark clouds that had just enveloped the sky dissipated at an unknown time, and the bright moonlight quietly descended at this moment, complementing the golden light emitted by Xia Ming Lingnan, reflecting the beautiful and moving body on the water surface. Ming Nan's smoke entered the water, causing ripples to rise in circles on the surface of the water, just like her heart's lake surging violently at this moment. She seemed to feel the man's gaze behind her scorching as he scanned her body, but she could not hear any response. "Xia Ming. Sir." She turned around with shyness, only to see Xia Ming with his back to her, his hand shining with a golden light, as if he was manipulating something with his spiritual power. He was not even looking at her. Even her body seemed less attractive to Mr. Xia Ming than the object in his hand. Originally, she had been engaged in such a long psychological struggle, struggling with various anxieties and expectations, and as a result, Mr. Xia Ming had no interest in her delicate body. He said he wouldn't peep, but surprisingly, there really isn't. The heat in Ming Nanyan's heart suddenly turned into a cold disappointment, just like this cold stream. She didn't know that although Xia Ming had his back to her, the thing he was manipulating in his hand was a mirror-shaped object transformed from spiritual energy. The image in the mirror reflects her delicate body that has partially sunk into the water. After all, girls have invited you, how can we not fulfill her wishes? However, Xia Ming is still somewhat reserved. Even if the girl sends out an invitation, she feels embarrassed to peek openly. And he knows that he's always nervous the first time. He has always been kind-hearted. Today, the girl experienced ups and downs in life, and her emotions fluctuated several times. He didn't want the girl to feel embarrassed and nervous even after taking a shower. So he turned his back specifically, so that the girl could relax and complete the task of cleaning her body with ease and joy. Now it seems that his kindness has indeed played a role. The girl is muttering her lips, slapping the water surface with her arms, and even attempting to accidentally splash water onto him. He has never seen such a lively girl before. After the cleaning was completed, the girl put on her clothes and brushed her face under the moon with a refreshing breeze. Her hair swayed lightly with the night, revealing a unique and pure and charming girlish charm. Xia Ming firmly remembered this scene in her heart. Although everything in the dream is fictional, no matter how I say it, I also saw the youthful side of Ming Nanyan. Can other people in the second city see this kind of Ming Nan smoke? They can only see the domineering and haughty presence of the Ming Southern Smoke Queen in the second city. Tisk, it's really pitiful. Ming Nanyan followed Xia Ming back to the campfire in a gloomy manner. As soon as she sat down, Xia Ming's head landed on her pure white and tender thighs. Ming Nanyan was slightly stunned, and followed the corner of his mouth slightly upwards by a few centimeters. At least, my thighs are more worthy of Mr. Xia Ming's use than the hard grass. Mr. Xia Ming, please don't worry about my feelings and continue resting on my lap. The girl's freshly cleaned body emitted a faint fragrance, like a tranquil orchid in an empty valley, which intoxicated people and aroused an impulse to explore. However, Xia Ming had not forgotten the main matter yet. His fingers tapped lightly on the grass below him, asking, "Ming Nanyan, have you awakened your spiritual power?" "Why does Mr. Xia Ming ask so?" "The reason why your father Minjiwanqing experimented with you was to try that kind of potion on you to see if it could awaken your spiritual power, right?" "But the experiment ultimately failed," Ming Nanyan lowered his head and said sadly, "otherwise he wouldn't have let anyone leave me in the wilderness." "No, if the experiment really failed, you should have died, but you survived and even met me." Ming Nanyan's eyes lit up and he said, "What does Mr. Xia Ming mean by?" Xia Ming patted her thigh and said, "Give it a try, close your eyes and feel it, feel your body and soul, and feel if there is an additional force that you can control in it." Ming Nanyan closed her eyes with joy and anticipation, as Xia Ming said, and tried hard to feel and capture the strange and unusual things in her body and soul. In a hazy state, she seemed to have truly sensed a hint of strangeness, a faint strange force lurking deep within her body and soul. However, that feeling was fleeting, like an illusion. As she tried hard to catch her, it suddenly flashed like lightning across the sky. Apart from giving her a momentary sense of confusion and numbness, it disappeared without a trace in an instant. "Mr. Xia Ming, I seem to feel something, but it seems like an illusion." Ming Nanyan lowered her head in disappointment and said, haven't I awakened my spiritual abilities? No, you have already awakened. Xia Ming stood up from her arms and reached out to play with a few strands of hair on top of her head that seemed to have become rough and messy due to static electricity. He smiled and said, "Your awakened spiritual power looks like electricity." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. She Kissed Down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. She kissed down. In this world, a person's willpower and soul strength can be cultivated and strengthened. But a person's soul potential is determined by heaven from birth and cannot be changed. Soul potential represents a person's spiritual aptitude, represents the upper limit that a person can reach in the future, and is also a high threshold that separates ordinary people from extraordinary beings. Without enough potential, one cannot awaken spiritual energy. If the potential is low, it is destined that one cannot see higher-level scenery, and can only wander in lower levels for a lifetime. The latter may be able to miraculously deflect under certain adventures or eerie spiritual objects, but the former. In this world, when a person's soul potential is insufficient to awaken spiritual energy. So no matter what methods he uses, he cannot become a psychic. Although this has been recognized for a century, the pursuit of transcendence and the thirst for power never make people retreat from this fact. Even though it has already been ordered to be banned, once discovered, it will face the condemnation of the coalition army. Various cruel experiments secretly studying how to awaken the spiritual power of ordinary people are still quietly conducted in every city and even in the wilderness. The most famous and common conjecture among them is, because the body and soul are interdependent, if a person's soul potential is not enough to awaken spiritual energy, then if those spiritual creatures in the spiritual realm, and even the blood and flesh of demons and disaster beasts with extremely high spiritual concentration are combined with the human body, when the body is forced to change and evolve, can that person's soul also break through the barrier that separates extraordinary and ordinary, and obtain the potential to awaken spiritual energy with the change and evolution of the body? Similar experiments have been continuously attempted by various companies, consortia, and forces in private, including Mingxia. For 100 years, this experiment has never been successful, and no matter what spiritual things are tried to combine with the human body, it cannot enable an ordinary person who is destined to be unable to awaken spiritual energy to obtain spiritual energy. The experiment found that as the body changes and evolves, the soul potential of the experimenter does indeed improve. But he still couldn't awaken his spiritual power, even after consuming countless precious wealth resources and elevating his soul potential to a terrifying height. As if every person in this world is born with a lock, favored by heaven, this lock is open. As long as the door can be pushed open, one can enter the world of spirituality. How far he can travel in this world and what kind of scenery he can see depends on the potential of his soul. And some people, even if they elevate their soul potential to a level far beyond other spiritual beings, as long as this lock is locked, they will never be able to open that door. Every faction is trying to unlock this lock, but no one has succeeded for 100 years. No one gives up, and everyone who studies this experiment firmly believes that any miracle in the spiritual world can happen. The reason why the experiment has not been successful must be that suitable materials have not been found yet. There must be a unique spiritual substance or some spiritual creature that, when combined with the human body, can break through the boundary between extraordinary and ordinary, and open that lock. Or perhaps the stacked soul potential so far is not enough. When an ordinary person's soul potential is raised to an unattainable height, quantitative change will inevitably cause qualitative change, becoming the key to unlock that lock. No one stopped this experiment. Even if ordered to be banned by the government and punished severely once discovered, such experiments have been carried out repeatedly in the shadow for the past century. And now, Ming Nanyan, a person whose soul potential was originally so low that even spiritual energy could not be awakened. The lock on her soul has been opened. She awakened her spiritual energy. After years of being injected with an unknown purple blood potion and enduring severe pain repeatedly, she was forced to forcefully elevate her soul potential. Finally, she pushed open the door. The door that countless researchers and powerful forces long to push open. And welcoming her will be a distant future that knows no bounds. What is my awakened spiritual energy? Electricity. Ming Nanyan followed Xia Ming's palm upwards and touched his head. Just washed her body in the stream, and her hair hasn't dried yet. At this moment, these strands of hair on top of her head not only dry, but also really become fluffy and restless like being electrocuted by static electricity. Did I really awaken my psychic powers? Her expression was somewhat surprised, and somewhat disappointed. What expression would his father have on his face if he knew that the experimental failure he had thought he had thrown into the wilderness had not died, but had successfully broken through the barrier that had not been broken through for 100 years and become a psychic? No, he is no longer my father. In Ming Nanyan's heart, her father had already completely died at the moment he chose to abandon her in the wilderness and reveal her true face. He is no longer her father, but the object of her revenge, Minjuwanqing. At this moment, Xia Ming also secretly breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Although Ming Nanyan looks very nice, her thighs are soft and bouncy when pressed, and even her body is fragrant. But he has no interest in being her nanny all the time. Instead of communicating emotions with girls in a fictional dream world, he wants to quickly complete tasks, earn system rewards, and embark on a stronger life. Guide the girl to realize that she has awakened her spiritual power and given her the belief to live. Next, teach her how to use the method of spiritual power enhancement for a few more days, so that she has a preliminary self-protection ability. After dying in the mouth of the wild beast in this wilderness, this task of saving Ming Nanyan should also be considered completed, right? And although this dream world is fictional, it is also somewhat too real. He couldn't help but feel a hint of worry in his heart. He was worried that after staying here for a long time, he would develop feelings with Ming Nanyan, and even bring this feeling into the real world. When he saw Ming Nanyan in the real world, his brain couldn't help but heat up and he wanted to go up and pat her thigh, asking her to lie down and use it as a pillow for himself. What should he do? In the dream world, Ming Nanyan can still bully, but in the real world, she is a mother tiger that cannot be provoked. But it doesn't matter, how could I take things from my dream seriously, right? Alright, let's take a break first. Tomorrow, I'll teach you how to use your spiritual power and methods to become stronger. Xia Ming touched the girl's head and then skillfully and naturally lay on her thigh, squinting her eyes comfortably. Ming Nanyan had just learned the fact that she had awakened her spiritual energy and was so excited that she couldn't sleep. How could she immediately calm her excitement? She silently stared at Xia Ming's sleeping side, recalling all the strange experiences that had happened to her that day, and recalling the things he had done for herself. Under the moonlight and firelight, the boy's profile appeared increasingly handsome, even with a heart-pounding charm. The quiet and sleeping boy was resting on her lap, his nostrils blowing warm against her skin. His long eyelashes trembled with each breath, as if stirring her heartstrings, full of charming temptation. Ming Nanyan's heart couldn't help but thump and jump rapidly. On a quiet night, the two of them were alone. The young man's unguarded appearance made her unable to resist a bold impulse. She remembered Xia Ming's various actions of touching her, the anticipation and strange feeling he felt from the base of her thigh when he patted her thigh, the warmth he felt when caressing her head, and the agony he felt when facing his naked body with indifference and turning his back to himself, causing her embarrassment and disappointment. Let you not look at me. Am I just not worth your attention? No girl has never dreamed of the story of Prince Charming since she was young, but her Prince Charming appeared on this day and saved her, yet she was not interested in her body. And now, he is lying quietly on her lap, unguarded on her lap, even if he does some harmless pranks on him at this moment. He probably won't notice, right? What kind of prank should we do? The girl's gaze fell on the boy's beautiful eyebrows, nose, and finally on his lips. The impulse in her heart grew stronger and she suddenly thought of what kind of prank to do. The girl bent down and lightly touched the boy's lips. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Damn it, it's a surprise attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Damn it, it's a surprise attack. Ming Nanyan thought that Xia Ming was already asleep and that his actions would not be discovered. However, Xia Ming didn't fall asleep at all. He was just closing his eyes and thinking about problems, such as whether he could still sleep and dream in the dream world. Who knew that Ming Nanyan was actually launching a surprise attack at this time? Ming Nanyan, you lascivious woman. Colorful woman. Xia Ming, who pretended to sleep, sensed the touch of the girl and his heart couldn't help but accelerate. Especially after the first shy touch, this lecherous woman seemed to become even more daring and reckless. Seeing that Xia Ming didn't react, after a while she actually kissed again. And this time it's no longer a one touch, she's actually starting to savor and enjoy it. Good guy. Xia Ming's heart became even more gloomy and uneven. I knew you were not a good woman, you stole my beauty and took my first kiss while I was asleep. After half a second of being angry, Xia Ming comforted himself in his heart. Forget it, lie flat. After all, suffering losses in a dream is not a loss. Returning to the real world, I am still a pure and innocent good boy. As a hero, what is it to make such a small sacrifice? However, this scene of tenderness and sweetness between you and me did not last long. Xia Ming was flustered by the girl's actions and did not notice that a faint mist drifting from afar was infecting the deep night. No, that's not mist, it's a drug. When the tide of drowsiness quickly flooded into his mind, Xia Ming realized a hint of something was wrong. However, at this point, even if psychic powers were invoked, the drug's effects had already been applied to his nervous system, forcing him to faint. And the girl who kissed him had already fainted and lost consciousness before him. Xia Ming tried to open his eyes and saw a psychic flying towards him at full speed. They did not use their psychic abilities to launch a surprise attack, as the fluctuations in their psychic abilities were likely detected by the psychic barriers he had set up around them in advance, which alerted him. They despicably and shamelessly used the means of releasing hallucinogens, which can sense spiritual energy but cannot detect these non-spiritual substances entering his nostrils and brain through the barrier he set up. At that time, he happened to be resting with his eyes closed on the girl's lap, unable to see the smoke of the drug drifting from afar. The girl was only interested in tasting his lips, and had no time to notice it. In a moment of carelessness, he was actually given away. The brain seems to be frozen, and consciousness tries to work hard, but it feels like a big boat stuck in a frozen river, unable to move forward. Xia Ming made an effort to open his eyes wide and firmly remember the face of the psychic who flew over. Is it your kid who launched a surprise attack? Wait until I reopen and see if I don't beat you up to the point where I even talked about sneaking a peek at my neighbor's aunt taking a shower when I was 3 years old. Xia Ming's consciousness could no longer hold on and passed out. A cold mechanical reminder sound came from the ear. Ding! The target object is imprisoned, you are dead, and the mission has failed. Your settlement review received. 35. Do you want to upload this as the final settlement to receive rewards? After uploading, this dream trial will be completely locked, unable to enter and continue to receive any rewards. Yes/no, Xia Ming suddenly sat up from the bed, his fingers landing on the void and nodding no. Damn it, Ming, sure, these despicable and shameless little people, are they launching a surprise attack, right? The last sudden attack came from someone, and his mind twitched and he immediately realized it. What kind of person would launch such a cautious and despicable surprise attack on two innocent pedestrians in this wilderness at night? It must be the Ming family. It's Ming Yuanqing. Xia Ming had some speculations in his heart. In the body of Ming Nanyan, who has been undergoing transformation all year round, there may be some kind of means used by Ming Yuanqing to monitor her physical condition. Maybe it's some spiritual item, maybe it's some biological monitoring chip. When Ming Yuanqing discovered that Ming Nanyan, who had thought she was about to die in the wilderness, had not died for more than 10 hours. Not only did her physical condition not deteriorate at all, but perhaps she even detected spiritual fluctuations on her body. The attack at night seemed exceptionally reasonable. I was careless. I kept thinking about how to help Ming Nanyan boost her spirits and find a way to survive. Unexpectedly, before starting to seek revenge against the Ming family, the other party came knocking on her door. He turned his head to look out the window, as night fell and the lanterns lit up. He slept from around 4 p.m. until night, and although he had already eaten the unpleasant dishes made by Ming Nanyan himself in his dream, his stomach couldn't help feeling hungry at this moment. Pushing open the door, looking into the kitchen from the living room, a tall figure was busy in front of the stove. Upon hearing the sound of the door opening, Xia, wearing a pink apron, walked from the kitchen and smiled, saying, "Wake up. Wash your hands and prepare to eat. 2 dishes have already been placed on the table, and Xia Zheng is making the last soup." Xia Ming walked into the kitchen, took out 2 bowls and 2 pairs of chopsticks from the cupboard, scooped out 2 bowls of rice from the cooked rice cooker, held the rice, and placed the bowls and chopsticks upright on the dining table. Then, he sat down and watched the busy figures in the kitchen. "Brother, you're so busy with work, why don't you just buy some food from outside and bring it back? You still need to do it yourself." Without looking back, Xia Zhengtu said, "What you buy outside is not as clean, hygienic, nutritious, and healthy as what you make yourself. Eat less takeout and try to cook it yourself when you have time." If the people under Xia Zheng in the Special Management Bureau were to find out that the section chief, who has always been cold and selfless outside, returned home like a nagging cook, still wearing a pink apron, he would surely be stunned and shocked to the point of shattering his chin. Xia Zheng was not like this before. When Xia Zheng was a child, although he was older than Xia Ming and a brother, he was much more mischievous and capricious than Xia Ming. He played pranks with a bunch of children every day, which made his parents the most headache. On the contrary, Xia Ming, who is younger, doesn't like to blend in with these little brats. He always sits in the sunshine like a mature little adult, holding a book and watching these brats play around. Occasionally, he helps Xia Zheng, who has been bullied and shed pearls, stand out, more like a tolerant older brother. Until that night, a dramatic change occurred, and my parents died in the aftermath of the Battle of the Psychics. The 2 brothers awakened their psychics on that day. Xia Zheng seemed to suddenly awaken his responsibility as an elder brother, becoming mature and stable overnight. He remained silent and unsmiling in front of outsiders, caring for Xia Ming like a father and mother at home, but instead appeared like a child. "There have been a lot of things going on in the bureau lately, and I'm taking some time to come back. If you want me to nag you like this in the next few days, I'm afraid you won't have a chance." Xia Zheng took out the soup and picked up chopsticks, saying. Upon hearing this, Xia Ming was somewhat surprised and looked at him curiously. "Didn't you already capture the fire digger, who has made everyone in the city anxious?" End of this chapter.